Have you heard the story about Andrew Tesoro and Donald Trump? I'm going to tell it to you in a moment, and it will explain Donald Trump's energy dominance doctrine, his strategy. And because it's energy and it's fossil fuels, primarily oil and gas, it has big implications for Canada. But let's first of all, we need to understand what Trump means by it and how it works. So Andrew Tesoro was an architect from New York, and Trump's organization hired him in 2002 to do some work on a clubhouse at one of his golf courses. So the bill amounted to reportedly around $140,000, and Tesoro was submitting his invoices, and the Trump organization didn't pay the invoices. And then at one point they got together, and there was, Andrew Tesoro on one side of the table and a dozen Trump staffers on the other side, and they said they basically offered him about a third of the invoice amount to settle up. And he didn't want to do that. And then he met with Trump personally, and Trump offered him half of a third. It turned out to be under 20% of the original invoice amount. And Trump's lawyers, allegedly, according to Tesoro, threatened a long, drawn-out lawsuit if he didn't agree to it. So in the end, Andrew Tesoro took a much smaller amount. He said that he lost well over $100,000 on the $140,000 invoice. And the point here is that Donald Trump had leverage and Andrew Tesoro didn't. And that's how, and in the late 1980s, and this is why I'm inclined to believe this story, the story that Andrew Tesoro tells. In the late 1980s, I was having lunch with a commercial realtor in Saskatoon, and he told me essentially the exact same story about how Saskatoon hotel developers did their business. And apparently, if you were a supplier of linen or you were a supplier of flooring or whatever it was, you would be a smaller company and you would think, well, this is great. This will be my big break. You submit your invoices and then there's something wrong with it. And they drag it out and drag it out. And finally, to avoid, to survive, you accept a much smaller amount on your invoice. And apparently this is common in the development world, or the real estate developer, hotel developer, whatever. This is common. But it's the big guy has got leverage over the little guy. And this is the essence of Trump's energy dominance. So look at the deal that he recently cut with the European Union. It was a trade deal. It's very general. It's not like the kind of trade deals, Canada, for example, entered into. We had NAFTA, and then Trump 1.0 was renegotiated, became CUSMA, Canada, U.S., Mexico agreement. And they take months, years, because there's a lot of there's a lot of details and fine print in the agreement, and the negotiators from both sides have to hash it all out. That's not the way Donald Trump does business. Handshake, move on. He's got his headline, and that's what he got out of the EU deal. The headline was that the EU, first of all, he applied 30% tariffs. That's where the leverage comes in. So the leverage comes from the tariffs he applied and the fact that the EU members had purchased $76 billion of energy, mostly oil and LNG. And remember that the US is the world's largest oil producer and LNG exporter. So the EU wanted to get off Russian gas and oil. And so between that and the tariffs, Trump had leverage. And so what he did is that a part of this deal, in order to he pressured the EU into accepting an agreement to buy $750 billion of energy products, which would be mainly oil, LNG, coal, and nuclear in the form of small modular reactors. And by 2028, that's 3 years. So supposedly the EU is going to go from $76 billion a year, 3.5 times as much, to $250 billion in a year. And as critics have pointed out, the EU can't compel its member states to make energy purchases anyway. So anyway, this is a whole mess. But the important thing is for Donald Trump is that he got the headline. He could brag about it and he could boast about it in the media and so on. This is energy dominance in a nutshell. Use the leverage you have. I mean, this is one of the reasons why he's putting tariffs on, 150 of the 195 countries in the world. And then he goes to negotiate a deal and he creates this chaos. And then he uses the leverage to extract the best conditions he can for for energy producers in the U.S. And I did a video a couple of weeks ago based on a New York Times article and the reporting I've done, where the clearly the geopolitical strategy of the United States under Donald Trump is to use hydrocarbons and well, fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas, and nuclear, and and that'll be the essence of their trade strategies and of their domestic energy. Meanwhile, China has gone the electrification route. And this sets up the great geopolitical contest between the two, where the U.S. sticks with the fossil fuels. China is electrifying as fast as it can on both the supply side and the demand side. And who's going to win? And Trump thinks that that he has more leverage because of the America's position as number one LNG exporter and oil producer. Now, in coming videos, I'm going to explain how it works inside. There's an energy dominance council, for example. So they're the mechanics of how it works inside, what it means for Canada, because Alberta Premier Danielle Smith has already said, "Hey, Alberta wants to be on your side. We love energy dominance. We'd love to supply you with more energy." But Prime Minister Mark Carney says that Canada wants to be an energy superpower. How do those ideas? I'm going to sort. I don't think we can sort them out, but at least I want to explain them, and we'll and sort of set the stage so we can see how it plays out in the coming months. So there'll probably be another 2 or 3 videos as I explore some of these ideas. But the basic point here is that Donald Trump is doing what Donald Trump has always done. With energy dominance, he's using the leverage to force concessions on countries that he thinks are weaker than the United States.